TNCradio.live, your commercial driver navigation station.
We're all about the news, information, entertainment, talk radio, music, comedy, and topics truckers want to hear.
I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. We're talking with retired NASA engineer Homer Hickam, who's the author of Rocket Boys, which inspired the movie October Sky.
We're talking with Alex Debogorski. He's one of the original stars of Ice Road Truckers.
Chip Davis of Mannheim Steamroller.
Music icon and Grammy Award-winning country artist Lee Greenwood.
We're speaking with racing legend Mario Andretti.
Michael Martin Murphey is a legend on the music scene with wonderful ballads and hits like Wildfire and Cowboy Logic. Curtis Grimes.
Michael McDowell, the 2021 Daytona 500 winner.
Our guest this afternoon is Tom Bodett. You know the name, you know the voice.
The Carolina Monkey Gouger, Jimmy Artis. Today we have the honor of speaking again with Long Haul Paul. Today we have Claire Dunn and Logan Mize with us. Stay tuned and stay safe with TNCradio.live.
Hello, everybody. This is Todd Dewey from Ice Road Truckers on the History Channel, and I love to listen to TNCradio.live.
Be sure to catch the Truckers Network radio show with your host, Shelley Johnson, weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on TNCradio.live.
Welcome in TNCradio.live. This is Highway Fever. And now here's your host, Charlie Claiborne.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Highway Fever. I'm your humble host, Charlie Claiborne, here on TNCradio.live. Tonight, we have two special guests. Both are involved in brokerage or work as brokers. And I thought it was important after watching both of these amazing ladies to talk about this subject. And I believe it was you, Brandy. One of your videos, you asked someone that was responding to something you said, what about this transparency thing changes anything? And then I watched your stuff a little bit closer, and I realized I found myself agreeing with you more than I disagree with you. And I actually had, a couple years ago, a huge problem when our last president, President Trump, he even accused brokerage firms in the TIA of price gouging truckers. And it was just really easy to believe that we were being taken advantage of. And I knew better. I'm pretty smart. I've been out here 30 years trucking. I've done from A to Z, and I know what supply and demand is. But right now, there appears to be something different going on. So I want to talk to you, and Anik is here as well. Ladies, hello, good evening. How are you both doing?
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Brandy, tell me a little bit about what makes your situation particularly unique, because not only do you run a brokerage, but you have a dispatch and logistics type side of your company. So I want you to talk a little bit about a couple different things. I believe that there's a lack of education in our industry. I believe that we have a lot of guys out there that don't understand what their cost per mile is. They don't understand to pay themselves and then to draw a salary to pay the bills at home. There seems to be a disconnect in the education of our drivers. And I think that is even kind of coming into play when people use word double brokering. So I'm going to throw something at you, and I want you to try to give me your best answer.
Okay.
When does co-brokering approach a danger zone? So I know you very well understand what I'm saying when I talk about co-brokering.
Yes.
And I want you to explain to people why co-brokering is not illegal and why you think people are confusing double brokering with co-brokering.
Yep. So we have co-brokering agreements with some of the larger third-party and four-party logistics services. So typically those companies, we all know their names, come in and they manage the entire transportation network of a company, right? So they're the main point of contact. They've come in and they've sold a management service. And in that, they agree to work with asset-based carriers and brokers alike. So they control the freight, they hold the bids, they do everything that the customer would do. So a lot of these customers that hire management companies, they don't want to be in transportation. They want to focus on their core competency, and they want experts to do the transportation, to mitigate cost, to know what the markets are doing. I mean, to start a company and have a sophisticated transportation group it's not easy. What we do is very complicated. Things are moving and very fluid. And so they'll hire companies to come in and manage their whole network. That is when co-brokering is okay. So we would go through the same bidding process that we would go through if we were working with the customer directly. We would have the same expectations set upon us as if we were working directly for the customer. And with that, there is an agreement that, co-brokering is okay. There is a set cost. Typically, these management companies come in at a cost plus, meaning transportation cost plus a percentage to manage it. And that's one thing. When you get into what we're saying double brokering, that is a totally different animal, and that is becoming a huge problem in the industry. In that, say for example, my company has a load to book. We post it out on the boards. We find a carrier that says they're asset based. We go through the process to check that carrier to make sure that they are indeed asset-based, that they're safe, that they're insured properly, that they have all of the things to run legally. And we tender them the load to pick up, but then they turn and post the load and find somebody else to do it. That is double brokering. So a lot of times with these guys that are double brokering, we've caught them paying more than what they got paid. And it's because these guys dip in really quickly, and then they fool a lot of us. They get paid by us, and then they don't pay the carrier. So at the end user, which is the driver, is the one that suffers the most with double brokering, because they're the ones that are getting ripped. And I think that there's just a lack of tools for our owner operators to check these guys out. I know a lot of guys factoring companies have a process to check out these guys, but they're getting smarter. We went as far as to do our research on dispatching services and other brokers, and a lot of these guys are overseas. Our government makes it very easy for anybody to get an authority to work within our industry. And
you see a lot of that. They're in Ukraine, or they're in Europe somewhere, or they're you just India. I don't understand how that loophole allows them, because, like it or not, one of the subjects we're talking about is transparency, right? Everybody has a different opinion on how transparency is important to them. From your perspective, and I talked to Anik a little bit about this, you both agree that these companies don't want to deal with 100 carriers. They want to deal with one source. You both agree on that, correct?
Yes. They would rather, when I post a load up on
load board, easily I get 40 emails. So that's just one load. These transportation managers deal with quite a few every single day. So say they have 20 shipments that they have to take care of, and they post all that up times 30 emails, they're not going to get anything done. They're not going to do the other things that are required in their job every single day. And that's why they rely on a broker to handle this shipment from cradle to grave, which means find the carrier, dispatch, do all the paperwork, set up for tracking, make sure POD is signed, make sure everything is accounted for, handle any kind of losses or damages, things like that, that they don't have time for. They don't want to. And to be honest, drivers and carriers don't want to deal with our shippers either. They don't want to have to put on that kind of face to deal with, front of the house like that. So we Absolutely. Are a really good intermediary and medium for them.
Well, ladies, when we come back in the second half, I'm going to get into a couple other issues as related to this 371.3 rule and get your opinion on a couple things. Thanks again for being here, joining us tonight. We appreciate it. Hope to have some fun. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Highway Fever here on TNCRadio.live. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Mallard Buildings always gives back to the community. At the recent Night at the Gatsby Gala, which was presented by McNeese to benefit the McNeese Athletic Foundation, Lee Malek donated over $23,000. His generosity and continued support will serve the student athletes, coaches, and support staffs well into the future. Lee Mallet is dedicated to building a better McNeese and a better Louisiana. This blog on TNCRadio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Driving in the heat can create dangerous situations for truck drivers. Drivers need to take specific precautions before hitting the road in extreme heat. With the incoming heat wave dubbed as a heat dome by the National Weather Service, drivers need to be aware of how to safely drive in these weather conditions. Follow our 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Every truck driver needs to complete a pre-trip inspection before driving, especially in hot weather. Check tires. Heat can have a huge effect on your tires. As the temperature increases, so does the air pressure in your tires. During the hottest months of the year, it's important to frequently check your tire pressure. Frequently checking on your tires can save you from a blowout. To get an accurate measurement, wait for your tires to cool down before checking the pressure. The heat and friction from the road cause your tires to warm up, which will cause a rise in tire pressure. Also, don't be afraid to take a break every couple of hours to let your tires cool down. While traveling in the summer months, you may want to give yourself some extra time to stop and check on your tires. Protect your engine. Not only should you protect yourself from the heat this summer, but you should also protect your engine. One way to keep your engine from overheating is to frequently check the engine oil. The oil keeps the engine cool and keeps the parts running smoothly. Engine coolant is just as important as engine oil. Coolant helps prevent the engine from overheating in extremely hot temperatures. Keep an eye on the coolant temperature gauge while driving. If the gauge goes above the safe temperature, pull over and see what's going on. Failing to assess the situation could lead to engine failure. Also, make sure to check for leaks in the hoses. A cracked hose could lead to engine failure. Tips to protect yourself from hot weather. It's just as important to protect yourself during extremely hot weather. Follow these steps to keep yourself cool and safe during these hot months. Stock up on water. As the temperature increases, you need to increase your water intake. Make sure to always have water in your truck. You never know when you might get stuck in traffic or break down on the side of the road. Wear sunscreen. Many truck drivers forget this step. Even when you're in your truck, you're still exposed to the harmful UVA rays from the sun. Make sure to put sunscreen on before hitting the road. Wear light-colored clothes. Light-colored clothing reflects light, and dark-colored clothing absorbs it. Wearing light-colored, loose-fitting clothes helps you stay cooler and more comfortable on the road. And be sure to check out our blog, 6 Safety Tips for Truck Driving While Driving in the Rain. This blog on TNCRadio.live was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
Do you feel like you're facing more than just the physical road ahead of you? Are you wondering if there's more to life? Join Ron Fraser, the host of Truckers Life Radio, every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, where he discusses the spiritual side of a driver's life. On the show, he goes through the spiritual and moral questions drivers face on a daily basis, helping you, the driver, as you travel life's highway.
TNCRadio.live, your commercial driver navigation station. Welcome back, TNCRadio.live. This is Highway Fever. Here's Charlie.
Hey, welcome back in, everybody. I guess I've said this a million times. Sometimes some of the most productive conversations we have on these shows is between the breaks, when the people that are working in these fields, you kind of bounce ideas, you have a open dialogue, and I truly believe that's how we're going to fix some of the problems in trucking. But we're joined tonight by Brandy Pierce and Anique. Both of these young ladies work in transportation and logistics, brokering. They both have their own outspoken views on things. But the more I talk to them, I think they agree with a majority of my generation of trucker. There's a total lack of driver education when it comes to running your business. And I think, Anique, you said it best when I talked to you. Your job is not to worry about how someone pays their bills or how much their bills are. They're calling you about a load. They're telling you what they'll haul the load for. You're telling them what you can afford to pay them to haul the load. But in both cases, neither you nor Brandy force anybody to take a load.
No.
People either take the load or they don't. That's part of the problem, right? If you can't afford to haul it, then pass.
Yes. What I say about what I do, and at the end of the day, it's a sales job. You're selling freight, you're selling trucks back and forth. But the way that I describe it best is I educate to motivate. If you are educated completely in what the parameters are of what you're getting out of your truck, and as a driver, what you're getting out of the load, then you can make an informed decision on whether or not this load is right for you. The last thing that we want to do is try to fit a square peg into a round hole. If it's not going to work for you, it's not going to work. There's plenty of freight out there.
I agree. That kind of lines up to what you said in your video the other day. I want you to kind of explain that to me just a little bit. When you asked that question, and now I understand why you asked it, given what I clearly see. What do they hope that the transparency, this bill, what is it going to really change? Okay. Because are you still going to make bad decisions? Are you still just going to haul a load because you need to haul the load? Or are you going to tell me what you're willing to haul the load for? And if I can't meet, then hey, we part ways and you look for a load somewhere else. Was that kind of the point you were trying to make when you made that comment about what is transparency going to change?
Yes. So I think, just from the comments of that video, the general consensus is that brokers take 50%. Like I don't, I'm not going to say that doesn't happen because I've seen it, but that's not the norm on loads. Margins on brokered freight rarely hit 50%, if at all. I mean, it's an incredible thing. And I think it's just a rumor mill that brokers take 50%. I put an offer out that said, if you show me that, I'll help you close the account for your own business. But that's not the norm. And that was the same comment over and over and over again. Like, you make too much, you make too much, you make too much. And I'm thinking that drivers think that that's going to help them negotiate a better rate, that there's money left on the table. And I could see where that is true to an extent, but you're going to get the information after you've already agreed to haul and perform the service. So what is that going to do for you?
And one of the things we were talking about during the break is you just said it right there. There's this conspiracy theory that every broker out there is bad.
Yeah.
And if people focused more on the bad brokers and how do we get the bad brokers out of the industry, and how do we talk to our legislature and our representatives about doing something to prevent people from out of the country, people who don't take these loads and then don't ever pay the driver for hauling the load, the guys that are double brokering the loads. Why hasn't, and we talked about it, a lot of us in my generation have said all along, they should raise the bond amount required for you to be able to participate in this business.
100%.
Why has that not happened, or why has that agenda never been pushed forward?
Well, I don't know if you remember, but the bond used to be $10,000, and then it was just
which was nothing.
Yeah, that was nothing. I mean, people dropped $10,000 into an account, but then they bumped it up to $75,000, and I mean it was an act of Congress to get that done, and so it's an additional step that just has to be pushed, and I don't think we're pushing hard enough for that.
And one of the other things we were talking about, both you and Anik, I asked you this question. You're both familiar with CFR 49-371.3, and both of you are compliant with that law.
Yes.
You record, you keep records, you have all of this information.
Yes.
Now, you both, I can't remember which one, but there was something about non-disclosure agreements, and I did a little research, and I found out that TQL actually has a non-disclosure agreement in their agreement that you sign when you haul a load for them.
Yes.
So you can legally never request the information, and you've signed your right away anyway. So if you're going to complain and say that brokers are ripping you off, why are you signing an agreement that says you can never get access to the records that even little people like you guys, you're keeping them, you're doing the right thing, you're following the letter of the law.
Well, here's another aspect of that, because I'm on Carrier 411, which is a subscription site. I'm sure Brandy knows about it. And there are freight guards.
Yep.
And there's a freight guard, a specific freight guard for back soliciting a customer. Yep. So if, say, I am a broker for a customer of mine, a shipper, and I go to a carrier and I say, hey, please haul this load for me. Go pick it up here. This is what we're going to pay you. Easy peasy, we're square. That carrier or driver goes to that shipper and says, hey, I know you went through a broker here. I know that that's what you want to do, but if you ever have this type of haul again and you just want to go directly through me, save some money, just give me a call. That's back soliciting. But in that, it is so very broad and so vague in the scope that even just disclosing a rate, or you don't even have to disclose the rate at that time, that's still back soliciting. That's still you or the driver kind of alluding to the shipper, hey, I know what you paid, I know what you're getting, and I know what I'll do it for. That's a freight guard, and you guys don't have access to that. You don't get to see what somebody else is saying about you unless somebody with a TikTok channel like me that puts it on blast. So
you get 10 days to respond to a carrier. So if somebody files a freight guard report on a carrier, they get 10 days to respond to that. So I would say the email address that request is going to go to is the email address that they registered their authority with. Right. So if they're not watching that and the 10 days pass, they have no way to respond to that. And it becomes very difficult. But even then, so I could speak as an asset. My drivers drop a card in every shipper we pick up in. If they choose to contact us, that's one thing. Never do they go in and say, hey, we hauled this load for TQL and they paid us $1,700. Call me direct next time. We don't do that. Back solicitation is very difficult to prove. But even as an asset-based company, and this is me putting on two hats, right? Like I put on my broker hat, I put on my truck hat. There's no way that I'm not going into a facility and not dropping a card. There's no way. And
that's
I
the
know
responsible thing to do if
Yeah.
they have any questions.
that's
Well,
it.
let's in the next segment, I want you both to put on your thinking cap because we're going to talk a little bit about your unique situation, Brandy, with you providing a dispatcher. So I want to talk a little bit about why I when I say education and why there's a lack of education and cost and how to run your business with a lot of these drivers that went out and bought trucks at the onset of COVID. Language barriers. I'm friends with many of the Latino drivers and Latino trucking groups, and I believe that one of the things that we see happening now is going to roll into these dispatch services that correspond with brokerage. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Highway Fever here on TNCRadio.live. I'm your host, Charlie Claiborne. We're joined tonight by Brandy and Anique, both in the brokerage and logistics, and we'll be right back after this quick break.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. Can people really change? I mean, should you even bother getting into therapy? It's expensive and time-consuming. And for what? Can you really change? Years ago, I had a graduate school professor who said, people don't change unless it's too painful not to. Is that true? Well, in my experience, not all the time, but it's pretty good. Because change is often motivated by pain, by some kind of discomfort, by something that hurts deeply, something that frustrates us, and therefore motivates us to take on a challenge to change something. So what can we change? Not other people. Oftentimes not circumstances, not the weather. What we can change is our perception of things. We can change our behavior and our responses to people and situations. And we can also learn how to let go of painful things from our past. Those are things that therapy can really help you change. Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. I am wearing a black and white shirt, cleverly to introduce a concept called dichotomous thinking. Dichotomous is two colors, black and white. And there are many people who think about issues in black and white. They don't know a gray area. What they typically do is see things as either all or none. They love it or they hate it. Best day ever, worst thing that could happen. Always a sense of catastrophic thinking and defeated. This thing is not going to work. It's terrible. It's also known as rigid thinking. And we have research that people who think rigidly or think dichotomously suffer more from depression and more from anxiety, more suicidal thinking. Why? Because of their inflexibility. You know, one of the hallmark signs of physical health is flexibility. If you take a person who can bend down and touch his toes or her toes without bending the knees, that's a good sign. Especially when compared to a person who could barely get past the knees. Well, the same thing's true about thinking. One of the hallmark signs of a healthy person emotionally is their flexibility. They have the ability to roll with the punches. Things don't always go your way in life. But the flexible thinker is able to say, that's okay, we'll work it out. You know, the new restaurant has a 2-hour and 45-minute wait. No, we're not waiting that long. Let's try this other place. You know, the movie we wanted to see, it's sold out. That's all right. We'll catch up to it in a couple of weeks. Let's go see this one. The flexible thinker finds a way to survive. The dichotomous thinker causes issues for self and for others. Practice being a little more flexible. Now I got to change my shirt.
Be sure to listen to Building Strong Minds with Dr. Chris, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on tncradio.live.
It's Truckers Life Radio from TFC Global with your host, Ron Frazier. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Here we're helping drivers as they travel life's highway. I love that. The spiritual side, drivers face a lot out on the road. Truckers Life Radio digs in on the spiritual and moral questions that drivers face on a daily basis. You don't want to miss it. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Catch Mind Your Trucking Business Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern with James Rogers, Jamie Irvine, and Tom Kelly. They provide expert advice about starting, operating, and growing a professional trucking business. It's Mind Your Trucking Business on tncradio.live.
Welcome back, TNC Radio.live. This is Highway Fever. Here's Charlie.
Hey guys, I hope everybody out there in the Dallas metro area is staying safe. Like Tom said when he interrupted the broadcast, this is not the time to try to dive into something. Pay attention, listen, look, stay safe, people, especially out there on I-20 in Louisiana. Those of you out in Oklahoma, stay tuned for your weather alerts. Pay attention and stay safe. Please be safe. Anyway, back to our guest. We're talking a lot about education and the lack thereof when it comes to owner-operators, especially many of the younger and some of the newer, not understanding how to factor their cost per mile, what it costs to run your truck, and how to pay yourself and put money aside. But one of the other things we talked about when it comes to transparency is one of the other barriers. I feel there's a language barrier. So we have an education barrier and a language barrier. I was talking to a good friend earlier, and we were talking about these dispatch services that have popped up, and everybody's training everybody to be a dispatcher. And Anik, it was you. I'm going to get to Brandy, but Anik, you said that you've actually had these dispatch services call you, and they don't even disclose that they're just a dispatcher for a carrier that they're finding loads for.
Correct.
So it seems to me like there's some holes in the dike all the way around this dam. You know, everywhere you look, there's bad brokers, there's people cheating the system, there's people double brokering, there's dispatch.
Well, look at it this way. You're invited to a party. Okay. Somebody invites you to a party and they sell it. It sounds really, really great. Going to be good people there, good fun, good space. But then you show up and there's a whole bunch of drugs and there's a whole bunch of illegal activity going on and you don't want any part of it. If they had disclosed to you that, hey, there might be some shenanigans, you would have had the choice at that point on whether or not you wanted to participate. It's the same thing with these services. They're selling you, the good parts of taking this carrier, using this MC to haul your load, but they're not selling you the full truth in the full disclosure. Whereas I want to know that I can communicate directly. I want to know, my customer needs to know that I can communicate directly with these people. And usually the dispatch services, they book the load and, they're on to the next. They don't have to keep up communication with you. I'm not saying all. There are a lot of dispatch services out there that are completely transparent. But a lot of the ones that are hitting the emails and hitting the loads that are posted are not disclosing that.
So, Brandy, you have a unique situation. And what I found about you is you're very open, you're very honest, you don't cut corners, you don't sugarcoat anything. Nope. You actually have a second part to what you do, and you do provide a dispatch service. So tell me, I was asking during the break, how do you maintain that integrity and transparency, and how do you deal with people? Basically, how do you feel about the emergence of all these people all of a sudden claiming that they can dispatch a truck?
So online learning became trendy and dispatching became trendy. To me, it's a cash grab. They're making money off of a course. to show you a small portion of the industry. I think these courses are gross. I will just say that. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but there are so many, and they're being taught by unregulated businesses.
Some shady characters from what I've seen.
Like that. It's just about a course. They want your money for a course. They don't care if you actually make it in the industry or not. They don't care if, they just want money for a course. So they sign you up. They teach you how to target drivers to come off of the back of the driver. They don't teach you about markets. They don't teach you, about rates and trends and how freight moves through the country and when produce season starts. They don't teach you this stuff. You're learning on the fly, and the driver is the one that pays for that. So what we do is we keep our dispatch service very separate from our brokerage. We actually prefer to lease on drivers versus dispatch for them. But we do have a handful of guys that just don't want to lease on, and we run them. But here's the deal. We keep that very separate. If my brokerage has a load that fits my owner-operator or a driver that I dispatch for, we don't broker the load to the dispatch service. I don't take money off of the brokerage part and earn money off of the driver. To me, that's no. So if the customer gives me $1,600 to move a load, and my brokerage has it, and I flop it over to my assets, my asset gets $1,600. We do not shave off of that. And I think that is a big deal in the industry, because these dispatchers enter the market as a dispatcher because that's easier than becoming a broker finding shippers. Finding shippers is very difficult. It's not easy. And they get in and they realize that this is not get rich quick, because that's what those courses are teaching. And they flop, and then they start doing shady stuff to make a couple $100 here and a couple $100 there. And then they get enough experience and they figure out how to get a shipper, and they enter the brokerage side. And then the next thing you know, they're shaving off both sides of the load. And I think that should be illegal.
Absolutely agree. Mm-hmm. So we all agree that there is definitely an education problem. So what would either one of you suggest? Obviously, we stopped teaching it at some point in this industry. I remember when people like Kevin Rutherford and the rest of them came out. These are the people that people didn't want to listen to, right? They didn't want to be told, the right kind of truck. And Kevin was right. It turns out years later, Kevin Rutherford and all these other people were right. You have got to understand what it cost you to own that truck. So when people talk about gross profit margin, net profit margin, you as a broker, right, you know what your costs are. The reason that a lot of guys, I think, get angry is you're making money, your overhead is lower, you know how to run your business, you're doing what you're doing. They own a truck. They should know that there are expenses involved with this truck. Yes, tires cost money. Maintenance costs money. Fuel costs money. You have to take care of the family. You have bills to pay, right? So you really need to understand what it costs you to drive that truck down the road per mile. This used to be taught at some point. The carriers don't teach it to their lease purchase plan people anymore. There's not a lot of talk on any of the satellite networks or other radio networks. I think that you ladies have an opportunity, especially what you do, is to make this an awareness campaign. You need to know what it costs you to run your truck before you call Brandy or you call somebody else, right? If you don't know what it costs you to run your truck, how's it ever going to appear fair?
Yeah, that's it. And if you don't know, so when you approach us and you lease on as an owner operator or you want our dispatch service, we actually fill all of that out for you. We have a questionnaire that goes over everything. And we also recommend having an escrow savings account for tires, for maintenance, because you'd be surprised at the drivers that live from load to load. And it's concerning, especially when they have, a blowout in the middle of nowhere, or they break down and they need a tow. Like, that gets very costly, and they don't have the money because they're living load to load for whatever reason. I mean, we all make mistakes, but for whatever reason, you're living load to load, and it's because nobody has taught you how to run the business side.
Right. You don't go into a doctor's office and describe your problem to the doctor, and then the doctor sits there and says everything that he can do for you to cure you, and then hear the doctor say, so how much are you going to pay me to do it? The doctor names his price. The lawyer names their price. The real estate agent names their percentage. They know what their time and what their profession is worth, and also what their costs are and what they would like to get paid on top of that. And we're in America. You can name that. It doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is going to be able to pay it, and that's fine. You're worth it. Like, don't cheapen what it is that you do. It's your equipment. It's your time. It's your expertise. You tell me how much that is worth to you, and I will tell you whether or not I can afford it. That's just in any kind of business.
I'm telling you. Listen, we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Highway Fever here on TNCRadio.live. I'm your host, Charlie Claiborne. We have Anique and Brandy joining us. We'll be right back after this quick break to rack up another hour of Highway Fever.
Six safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Driving in the heat can create dangerous situations for truck drivers. Drivers need to take specific precautions before hitting the road in extreme heat. When there's an incoming heat wave, drivers need to be aware of how to safely drive in these weather conditions. Follow the Truckers Network's 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Every truck driver needs to complete a pre-trip inspection before driving, especially in hot weather. Check your tires. Heat can have a huge effect on your tires. As the temperature increases, so does the air pressure in your tires. During the hottest months of the year, it's important to frequently check your tire pressure. Frequently checking your tires can save you from a blowout. To get an accurate measurement, wait for your tires to cool down before checking the pressure. The heat and friction from the road causes your tires to warm up, which will cause a rise in tire pressure. Also, don't be afraid to take a break every couple of hours to let your tires cool down. Protect your engine. Not only should you protect yourself from the heat, but you should also protect your engine. One way to keep your engine from overheating is to frequently check the engine oil. The oil keeps the engine cool and keeps the parts running smoothly. Engine coolant is just as important as engine oil. Coolant helps prevent the engine from overheating in extremely hot temperatures. Keep an eye on the coolant temperature gauge while driving. If the gauge goes above the safe temperature, pull over and see what's going on. Failing to look at the situation could lead to engine failure. Also, make sure to check for leaks in the hoses. A cracked hose can lead to engine failure. Check your brakes. Cold and hot weather affect your semi-truck's brakes. When you brake, you create a significant amount of friction, and your brakes become extremely hot. When you add in hot weather, your brakes have an even higher chance of failing. To avoid your brakes from failing, brake gradually to decrease the amount of heat. Also, regularly check your brake pads to ensure they're working properly. Tips to protect yourself from the hot weather. It's just as important to protect yourself during extremely hot weather. Follow these tips to keep yourself cool and safe. Stock up on water. As the temperature increases, you need to increase your water intake. Make sure to always have water in your truck. You never know when you might get stuck in traffic or break down on the side of the road. Wear sunscreen. Many truck drivers forget this step. Even when you're in your truck, you're still exposed to the harmful UVA rays. Make sure to put sunscreen on before hitting the road. Wear light-colored clothes. Light-colored clothing reflects light, and dark-colored clothing absorbs it. Wearing light-colored, loose-fitting clothes helps you stay cooler and more comfortable. Kathy DeCaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada,
She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. I'm Shelley Johnson with Kathy Tuccaro. You can hear us Tuesdays on TNCRadio.live at 8 p.m. Eastern on Women Road Warriors. And don't miss Steve Summers' Overnight Drive right here on TNCRadio.live, weeknights midnight to 5 a.m. Eastern. Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Welcome back, TNCRadio.live. Here is Highway Fever. This is Charlie Claiborne.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. We're wrapping up the last segment. And during the break, I was talking to Anique and to Brandy. And for those of you sending the messages, the ladies have said they would absolutely come back and join us again in the very near future and take your questions, answer your questions. I'm going to tell you right now what I've learned a little bit about Brandy and Anique both. Again, they don't pull any punches. Just real quick, Brandy, how do people find you on social media? I let everybody do this, so very quickly, tell them how to find you on your social media, so in case they want to follow you or listen to what you have to say.
Yep, TikTok is probably the best way for freight and trucking, and it's the Freight Broker Lounge, Freight Brokers Lounge at the Freight Brokers Lounge. That's the best way.
Anique?
My company name is Small World Ventures, LLC. I have a site, samename.com. I also have a Facebook page for that, and also on TikTok as Small World Anique, spelled ANNIQUE.
Well, awesome. So, guys, there you have it. They've agreed to come back. The biggest thing I want everybody to know is not every broker out there is bad. Not every broker out there is out there to cheat you. I just introduced you to two wonderful women who have integrity, character, and they flat out, they said, we keep these records according to the law. We do what we have to do. But all of us are kind of in agreement that what we really need to do is start educating these younger drivers and these newer drivers on how to run their business. They used to teach it. You know, I even would love to have Kevin Rutherford come on my show for a segment and explain to everybody, Barney style, exactly how you calculate your cost per mile, how you run your business as a business, not a cash cow. And I guess you ladies do agree that they're one of the biggest challenges we face as an industry when it comes to how to negotiate or how to talk or deal with a broker is understanding what it costs.
100%. If it doesn't fit your need, just say no, move on to the next load. And I understand sometimes you find yourself in those markets where there's not much to pick from, but before you went into that market, you should have known what you needed to go in to come out. I think there's some of that missing too, like where to position your trucks to get the best money. And Holly, I would love to educate everybody on that, because I think even as a fleet owner, like, you should know that. We know that. I know what's happening. And we're going where the money's at. And sometimes you're going to get it going in and you don't get it coming out, and vice versa. But you've got to know this stuff.
Mm-hmm. You ladies, I'm telling you, I am looking forward to having you back and teaching some of these little things. Look, they're things you've learned along the way that, you know, sometimes if we don't give some of this knowledge to others that we've learned, if we don't try to educate people, you realize, I had a very good friend of mine tell me the problem with trucking is when the people at the very bottom don't succeed, the ones that are performing the worst, that are having the hardest time, when they don't succeed, they drag everybody from the top down. This is the only industry where that happens. So when they're doing poorly at the bottom, they hauling loads cheaper than they should, or they don't understand their cost per mile. They start setting trends. And DAT likes to set trends based on what freight goes for in certain lanes. They don't understand how they're influencing the market when they don't accept freight that they can afford to haul.
But conversely, on that side, that is a carrier's downfall. But that's also a newbie broker's downfall, to just go by what RateView says or ITS rates. When they don't have the spidey senses, or they don't have the experience under their belt, and they're just rating their customers based off what some algorithm in analytics on DAT says, and that doesn't reflect the desirability of a lane. And so,
ladies, again, thank you for joining us here on Highway Fever on TNCRadio.live. I'm your host, Charlie Claiborne. This has been Highway Fever. Have a safe night. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next Thursday, 6 p.m. here on TNCRadio.live.
Do you have the TNCRadio.live app? It's free and easy to download. Just go to app.tncradio.live, Google Play, or the App Store. Get access to live streaming radio developed by drivers for drivers. Download the TNCRadio.live app today. I'm Ron Samuels. We put it in reverse gear so you can enjoy the history of popular music and hear the soundtrack of life Wednesdays at 8 Eastern and 7 Central, right after the train station on TNCRadio.live.